Redditors who have mistakenly walked in on people having sex. What's your story? Not really the answer you're looking for, but when my sister died in a car accident, I rushed to her room to destroy her sex tapes I overheard her talk about to her boyfriend before the parents found them. Walked in on my buddy's girlfriend walking back to her room from the bathroom naked while he was putting pants on. He told me to come in because he thought she was getting dressed in the restroom, but she had left some clothes, I guess. I just remember my thought process being, that's a butt. Boy, is it red. Oh my god, that's Linda's butt. After they shut the door and got dressed, she came out and teased me, saying my face was more red than her butt. I've never been more embarrassed in my life. Edit. Bad grammar. Also, not her real name. She heard the door when I opened it and ran into their bedroom. The damage was done, and instead of hiding, she joked about it to make it less awkward. I was young and naive, and my older brother was quietly having sex with his girlfriend at our parents' house. I went to call them for dinner and opened the door. Neither of our rooms had locks. Thankfully they were under the covers and I immediately left. But my brother followed and slapped me round the head. With his hands, I assume? I work security on my campus. There were a few times walking in on couples making out or something. But one time I walked into the art building to close it up. I normally didn't check the basement because there wasn't ever really anyone down there. It's a play costume area. This night there was a play earlier, so I decided to check it. I walked through and there was this one door closed, but it had a small glass window. I saw one girl with her legs spread and another girl with her face in between them eating her out pretty voraciously. I knocked on the door and kinda ran and cleared the rest of the building, then went and checked to make sure they had left. I go to a small school, so I knew who the girls were. The eater is married now to a guy. I never really told anybody about it. The eater mayo. Not walked in, but I could hear moms screaming. So when I was about 5 or 6, I was at home with my parents. Usual stuff. They leave me in the living room watching some cartoon while they go around do house chores. One time, I went upstairs to look for something, and I just heard my mom in the room screaming like she is getting hurt. The door was locked. Immediately I thought, IDKY. But I thought my dad was hurting my mom. So I was there knocking on the door screaming at my dad to stop hurting mom, and I remember my mom saying something along the lines of, "It's okay baby. I'm okay." Mom is okay between moans and screams. Now I'm 24 and I know why. We were 12 and walking in a group of 5 on the beach under the moonlight. One of us sees what we think is a seal lying very quietly on the sand, waiting until our group passed by. It was not a seal. Rookie mistake. I threw a house party and put a sign on my bedroom saying off limits. A friend told me he heard someone in my room, so I entered and saw the prom queen riding a buddy of mine. I quickly exited the room. Later that night he came up to me and said, "I'm sorry about having sex in your bed, but at least you got to see Alexa naked. We cool?" And we shook hands and never spoke of it again. Was seeing Alexa naked worth it? I was walking through the Hyde Park, Sydney. They were banging out in the open. I'm not saying it was me, but I'm also not saying it wasn't me. I walked in on my parents. I was maybe 14, but I thought I heard my mom crying, so I went in to check on her. It took me a minute, but I figured out what was going on and pretended to be sleepwalking. I used to be a sleepwalker, so they really didn't think I saw. They told me to go back to bed and I did. They knew. I was a pizza delivery boy fresh out of high school, and the place I worked for had a 25-minute delivery guarantee happening at the time. Between placing the order and me arriving to their house, I'd arrived within 10 minutes as the address was close by. They decided that'd be a good time to get down to business. I arrived, walked up to their open front door and knocked. In full view of the front door, they were going at it like rabbits. The woman, hearing me knock, hastily covered herself exclaiming "OMG OMG." While the man just casually walked to the door completely naked and erect with his cash. He even stood there waiting while I counted out his change. It was probably the most awkward thing I've ever encountered. Edit. Spelling and grammar. Edit 2. I was a pizza delivery boy. Say no more. I found a bag of SX toys when looking for my Game Boy my mum confiscated. I remember reaching into the bag and pulling out one of the biggest dildos I have seen to this day. Still haunts my dreams. My sister did that. Hey, I was going through mom's drawer for socks and I found this. What's this? Takes out a giant cock-shaped vibrator with a second dick meant for an L. Oh. I don't know, sis. I had a hotel room booked on a trip to Queensland, Australia, and they gave me the key to a room that was apparently already inhabited. Walked into a lovely couple enjoying some doggy style action. Immediately closed the door. They hadn't heard me, thankfully, and went back to explain the mistake to front desk. They were mortified and moved me to a penthouse room with amazing views of the waterfront along with some free chocolates and dinner. Free dinner and a free show. Was at a party. Door to the living room area was closed for some reason. Weird. Open door. Half of my friends at the party are engaging in an orgy. Closed door. When I started my first job as a teenager, I would always make sure to tell my parents when I got home so they knew I had gotten home safe. I guess they forgot that was the routine. Well, sure enough, walked into their bedroom with them in the middle of a passionate session. Good thing it was dark and I didn't really see anything. I just turned around, walked out and never said anything ever again until now. P.S. I also found a SX tape of my sister, but that's a different story. I think I might have issues cause of all this, but what can you do? Obviously it's sharing the link. You need to help us help you. Share the load, so to speak. And we can beat your issues together. My little sister's 16th birthday. I was definitely too old to enjoy myself. We had an olive grove down the back of our house. Later on in the night, I walked down there into a crowd that had formed. The group was standing around watching two kids doing it. For the first time. It still haunts my dreams. Edit. Read my little sister's 16th birthday and saw that story going in a completely different direction. I walked in on my roommate and his girlfriend in college. I think one of my classes was cancelled because it was the week before finals. As I opened the door, they both yelled "Dan, no." And I just saw my roommate's ass trying to shield himself and his girlfriend. I let out an insanely over-the-top laugh, then left. About 5 minutes later, he walked into our friend's dorm that I went to hang out in, and he said we only had to make it one more week without this happening. Good times. It was my 16th birthday and my mother had made cake. So I decided to call my brother to come downstairs. He didn't respond. Thus I ran upstairs to get him. Without knocking, I slammed the door open. I was a bit too excited, and I found his girlfriend with her head between his legs. My brother couldn't stop laughing and his girlfriend's face was completely red from shame. This is how I met my sister-in-law. So it's Halloween and I'm 18 or 19 partying with my friends. A few friends were visiting from a different city and had a hotel room that we all ended up going back to. It was 4 girls and one of the girls' boyfriend. I had already thrown up outside of the hotel in the bushes, but I knew I'd have to do it again. We get all settled and some of the other girls are playing a card game whilst I had the spins. I remember jumping up and running to the bathroom. I opened the door and my friend's roommate was having sex with her boyfriend in the shower. I shut the door fast and say sorry, but I still had to vomit, so I was like, guys, get out. They told me to come back in. Me being drunk thought, okay, they're going to leave. Nope. They just closed the shower curtain. So I listened to them having sex while they got it onto the sounds of my puke. Not my story, but a friend's. He and his girlfriend were doing the deed and for whatever reason they had ended up in his parents' room. Well, they heard people coming up the stairs. So they hurriedly grabbed all their clothes and hid in the closet. His parents come in and get it on themselves. My buddy and his girlfriend had to sit naked in the closet trying to be as quiet as possible listening to his parents having sex. I've seen some research videos on the internet that began like that. I walked in on my parents. Twice. First time I would have been about 6. I went in to ask for water and then immediately walked out, knowing I saw something I shouldn't have. Second time it was at a poorly designed resort cabin. There was shaped sort of like a dumbbell, 2 bedrooms and a corridor joining them. In the middle of that corridor was the door for the bathroom. The place also only had 2 doors. A bathroom door and a sliding door for my bedroom, but no door for my parents. So middle of the night I opened my sliding door to the bathroom and lo and behold, my parents going at it doggy style. Freshman year of college. Everyone on our floor was friendly. And we had an open door policy, so we would often walk into each other's rooms to do things like ask if people wanted to go to the dining hall together or get a group together to play soccer. So, one day, one of my friends was under the weather with a cold. I thought on my way out the door to the dining hall I'd stop in his room and ask if he wanted me to bring him back some chicken soup. Little did I know his girlfriend had driven 4 hours to come surprise visit him because he was sick. I barge into his room as I always did, and the first thing I see is this girl on top of him. Topless. So I did the only sensible thing. I asked if she wanted chicken soup too. 4 years later we're all still friends. Not as close as we were freshman year. But that's what happens over time. 5-6-year-old me scream my lungs out. Daddy is choking mommy. Yup. SX. I wasn't the child. But my toddler son walked in on me beating the hell out of his mommy's ass with a riding crop. He ran away wailing while I tried to explain to her she should go comfort him. Because for me to chase him down the hall with a boner and a riding crop is exactly the sort of thing that comes out in some future therapy session. Let me set the scene. The 19th of August 2017. I had just flown from a week in Cancun back to Australia. 24 hours later my housemates were having their engagement party in our backyard. I escaped the chaos ensuing outside and walked into our other housemate's room to see what he was up to. I'd be lying if I said I didn't walk in on a 6-foot white man absolutely smashing a slight Asian male in upside down missionary position. I casually shut the door and returned to the chaos outside, where they proceeded to embrace me 5 minutes later. What a time to be alive. I've never walked in on anyone, but I've been walked in on by 2 people at a party who thought they were about to have sex in the same room me and my partner were in. Doing night checks at work. Old age home. 2 clients going at it. Luckily didn't get have to eyeball some old wrinkled balls or taint. Just closed the door and went to hysterically laugh with my coworker. Honestly, at 87 good on them. Although it caused a bit of a scandal since they were married and not to each other. Not me, but my friend. They were making cookies in our dorm and he remembered he has a half gallon of milk in his room. Milk goes well with cookies, so he goes to get it. Without thinking he opens the door to his room, and at about the halfway point between the door and his mini fridge, he just stops. He looks over and sees his roommate on top of a girl, very obviously having sex. He looks at them in the fridge, which was like 3 feet away, and says just getting the milk. He walks over, grabs the milk out of the fridge and leaves. Walked in on my parents. Literally 9 months later my little head of a brother was born. Was at a hostel. Woke up really late at night, 2 to 3 AM, and heard some distinctive turkey slapping in the showers. Walked down the aisles of showers to figure out the sound, and only after the fact did I realize it was turkey slapping sounds. And just in this little notch is 3 dudes, one beating a bloke's cheeks red with his penis, one jerking off in the corner with the other's cock in his mouth. They must put some serious force into that slap to make you hear this. 2 people having sex walked in on me while I was sleeping. It was at a cottage and I was asleep on the bunk bed. A couple came in and started having sex on the bottom bunk, not realizing I was on top. Had been sleeping on a friend's couch after a party. I was very drunk and had to pee in the middle of the night, and the nearest bathroom was through the room next to me. So I stumbled in on two people I didn't know very well. But instead of doing the normal person thing of just leaving, I gave the guy a big ol' gun and finger guns and walked backwards out. Went back to sleep. Woke up 30ish minutes later completely forgetting this happened. Realized hey I need to pee, walked in the same room again. Again completely shocked. So I smiled again, gave him a thumbs up and shuffled backwards out. Went to the other bathroom, fell asleep and forgot again. Found out about this story the next morning by the guy, who thankfully thought the situation was funny. Edit. I pieced the story back together from what he said. He more jogged my memory, as all I could remember was really having to pee. TL. DR. My house was the place everyone hung out when we were like 18-20. Walked out of my room to grab a box of tissues to clean up after myself and my GF and walked into my friend and my GF's friend on the lounge. Laughed. Grabbed the tissues. Went back to bed. MFW, I can finally answer one of these but it's really awkward. I was about 7. Woke up early on a Saturday to play Mario Kart with my bro. At that age, we had to get permission to play games. I barged into their room just as my father throws a sheet over my mother. I have never heard of SX at that point. I thought she was just sick. So I waddle up to the sheet covered mound and ask, "Hey mom, can me and bro play games?" She dismisses me with a yes and I leave. Dad shouts a parting shot. "Knock before you enter, son." Thought we were going to bundle in on my mates asleep. Two of us wrapped in towels thinking how funny it will be. We kick in the door and burst in. Turns out him and his boyf were full on naked noshing away, everything on show. We turn to run but my mate gets out the door first and closes it behind him. I slam into the door face first. Towel slips over my eyes and I can't get out. I was scrambling at that door for a good 30 seconds whilst the couple shout abuse at me. 30 seconds can be a long time. I showed up at a house party super late. I think I had a date or something that went horribly, so thought that I'll go get drunk. I always partied in my friend's basement because it was just a good setup. I failed to notice that A. There weren't any cars in the driveway or on the street. B. There weren't any shoes or boots upstairs. I go skipping down the stairs with my case of crispy boy and burst into the basement when I hear a small shriek and see two people dive onto the couch. She pops her head up and goes, "Oh. Hey MJV, 22 feet. Party ended early tonight." Clearly naked. I hear my friend giggling from the shelter of the couch and just slowly back out of the room. Walked in on my parents once. It was like 11 PM and I needed my charger. So I walked in and my stepdad was putting his noodle in the ravioli. And I froze. Mother locked eyes with me to assert his dominance. I walked to the side of the bed, grabbed charger, and left. Never spoken of it. What a lying power move. When I was little, my dad and stepmom and I would always go to the beach. We wouldn't go to a hotel, but rent rooms of a house. I always assumed that the woman owning it was part of my family. Fast forward to a morning where I couldn't find my stepmom and started searching the house. Little me opens random door screaming off, "Have you seen my mommy?" I didn't get until later what those two other guests were doing, but their faces were so priceless. I still can picture their shocked faces in my head. Edit. Because it wasn't clear that two people were other guests. Walked in on my female flatmate having a two-guy threesome, and not like the three-ways you seen in PRN where one's at the mouth the other is behind. It was like a sandwich. There was a dude on his back, my flatmate laying on top of him, and then the last guy was kinda lurched over the whole affair with his feet on the ground but his torso on her back. We never discussed it, but it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen happen and actually put me off starting a relationship with her when the opportunity came up. She had a sandwich alright. The double penetration on rye. I walked into my parents' room. Luckily they were under the blanket. My dad rushed to lay back down. I acted like I didn't know what was going on. But I could smell the stank. Ugh. But I could smell the stank. Freshman year. My roommates and I came up with tacos as our code word for this is occupied because the occupants of the room are making a trip to Coatusville. Since we didn't RLY text each other, we had a whiteboard outside our room that we would write things on. One evening after dance practice I just wanted to come in and pass out on my bed. So I read the tacos inside messages and thought yeah they ordered tacos. One can imagine the fight response that was triggered when I saw my bear of a Romet yelp in surprise as he stopped vigorously thrusting onto his porcelain doll of a girlfriend. I immediately shut the door and sprinted to our common room as they got there together. And was invited back in where I stammered out 100 apologies. Everyone laughed and we came up with a new phrase. Do not enter with a date and timestamp. Figured this happened to a lot of you people in colleges but it's always funny to me. I was the person being walked in on but it was really funny. I was in one of my fraternity common rooms. I deserved to be walked in on but that's beside the point. We had been drinking and one thing led to another and we were doing the dirty. Well the door had a combo lock on it and the only people who had access were my roommates. Well my roommate decided 2 AM was the appropriate time to get his guitar and practice on the patio. So he enters the room with this goofy look on his face until he realized what was happening. So he nonchalantly grabs his guitar and begins to leave. But before he goes, he gave us a 20-second Spanish serenade on the guitar. My words do not give that moment justice in just how entertaining and funny it was. One of my friends lived in a studio apartment very close to our campus and I lived like 45 minutes away. So she gave me a spare key to her apartment in case I wanted to take a quick nap between classes or have food or something. One day, I wanted to get a nap before my next class and I went over to the apartment expecting her to be in her class but instead I walk in her and her boyfriend doing it in doggy style. Freshman year of college. My roommate's friend was in our dorm room and I was leaving for work. I was pretty confident they were planning on having sex once I left. Got downstairs, room was on the 4th floor, and realized I had left my work shirt back in the room and went back up to get it. I couldn't have been gone for more than a couple of minutes and regrettably did not knock beforehand. Opened the door to see they had wasted zero time in getting it on. There was about a 2-second delay where no one said anything. I grabbed my shirt, said have fun, and bolted out of there. One other thing. My roommate had recently come out to me. I was flattered but had only knew him a couple of months at that point, and I think that just made everything a bit more uncomfortable than a situation like that could already be. When I was 11-12, I had walked in my parents' room at 4 AM. I used to go for morning walks with my ma, to find ma and pa bareback on the sheets. I pretty much walked in their room then right back out after I saw. Then went to the backyard to wait for ma. Right when I walked outside there were 2 cats smashing sitting on our shed next to the back fence of the yard. Perfectly cementing the image I had been trying ever since to forget. And then BSP. I don't remember very many details because it was a long time ago. But I was apparently bothered by it for a few months. One of my friends, who we will call S, and I are at a party and we're looking for one of our other friends, who we will call W, who we hadn't seen for a while. We open the door to a dark room and just make out our W's face in the light coming in from the hall. S runs in, jumps on W and starts to drunkenly dry hump him as a joke when all of a sudden we hear a girl in the bed scream out what the. S gets off the bed and tries to run out of the room but trips over a poor girl drunkly asleep on the mattress on the floor and wakes her up. We had just walked in on W losing his virginity to a girl he really liked and S made it a shared experience for all 5 of us.